fairness,
Okay.
safety,
Mm,
transparency, explainability, and also human in the loop governance. You want to make sure
mm,
that there is always human in the loop. Though I always say that, well, most of the problems or issues that we face right now were actually created by human, but it's still always good to have a human in the loop so that there's an oversight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another guest expert episode. On the last episode, we have the intellectual juggernaut, the one and only Dr. Michael Akinwumi, and it was filled with so much insight and so much wisdom. We spoke about from like the components of building AI system to the principles of responsible AI to debunking the black box myths and so on and so forth. So if you're yet to watch it, you should go back to watch it. But we're not going to talk about what we talked about last time. We're just going to dive right into the continuation. And I would like to welcome Dr. Michael Akiwumi. Let me introduce him again. He's the Chief Responsible AI Officer at the National Fair Housing Alliance. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to continue the conversation we started a few weeks ago.
Thank you. Okay, so getting right into it. The first question I want to ask is, so there's been some concern about some AI systems not being diverse enough because the data used to train it was just maybe monotonous. So as regards stakeholders engagement, like the need to have diverse voices and view integrated into AI systems, how can organizations ensure that they engage stakeholders?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that question. So when it comes to stakeholder engagement, there are different approaches or strategies that organizations can take. And in fact, at the National Fair Housing Alliance, there was a white or paper that we published, I think about 2 years ago, where so we call it a PPM framework, purpose, process, and monitoring framework. There's actually a section there that talks about staff profile when it comes to ensuring that AI system is equitable, is inclusive, and also making sure that the data itself is also diverse, right? So, but one of the things we advocate and that I also want to suggest here when it comes to stakeholder engagement is that it's very important to one, consider AI system to be a socio-technical system, which means AI systems they act in a certain context, right? So which means that you want to look into the system that you're putting together that you're developing and start by asking the question of what problem are you trying to solve, right? And as you think through the problem you're trying to solve, you might realize that there is social implications for the problem, and then trying to identify, for example, the communities that are likely to be more impacted by the problem you're trying to solve using algorithm, and centering the problem around the experiences of those communities, like reaching out, trying to understand, okay, well, this is the problem we're trying to solve. These are some of the experiences that we think we need to reflect in our process are designed to solve the problem and bring all these different communities, all these different stakeholders to the table, to the conversation. And then from there, as you also proceed from, resolving the problem and making sure that it's ethical is the right thing to do, and you also consider the experiences of the different stakeholders, the next step usually is around, okay, the data to solve the problem. And as you think about the data, of course, it's very important that the data is representative, right? So, and I'm going to give maybe like a use case or an example. to tie all my recommendations or suggestions in terms of like bringing the stakeholders together. I'll share an example. So as you think about the data, you want to ask questions around how inclusive is the data, how representative is the data, because there are instances where you may actually have the right experts or expertise at the table, right? Talking about, okay, this is the problem, this is how it impacts different communities. But there may be a station where the data to even represent all these collective experiences may not be representative. So there needs to be a discussion about what needs to be done to make sure that the data represents these different communities that we have included or considered during the problem setting stage. And as you think through that, you also need to think about the people that are going to use the end product, which is the model, right? So you need to think about testing the product, which is the
Mm,
model in this case, or the AI system in this case that is rendering the service, testing it on different communities to actually assess the possible impact. And there are different guidance from different agencies, for example, from the NTIA about how to do impact assessment. And this is an assessment that needs to even happen before the solution is deployed, right? So as you think through about impact assessment, you need to think about different individuals, different groups, different stakeholders that are likely going to be at the receiving end of this system, and then have a process in place to bring them together. So bringing the different stakeholders together or developing your community engagement around AI system shouldn't be afterthought. It should be
mhm,
part of the process that you have in place before you even build the system. So, as an example, so let's say the AI system that I'm developing is going to cater to the needs of those who are trying to assess renting, for example, those that are looking for renter to rent an apartment. Then you need to think about under the law, those who are protected by the law, for example, based on race, color, religion, familiar status, and other protected characteristics. So let's say we pick race, and then you look at all the different racial categories, and you're trying to solve a problem using an algorithm, using machine learning model. Then it's really important that we think that what is the different racial groups when we're thinking about the problem that we want to solve. The different racial groups need to be included, be part of the conversation when we're trying to solve the problem. And then when it comes to the data itself, the people that are developing the models or the systems need to think about, for example, what are the representations of the different racial groups, white applicants, are those white people that are searching for apartment, black that are searching for apartments, or Hispanic, non-white Hispanic that are searching for apartment. How are they represented in the underlying data, for example, for tenant screening applications, right? And even if you have your solution to help people, to connect people to their renter, to search for apartment, also need to think about bringing all these different stakeholders together during your impact assessment before you roll out the system so that you can have real data on how the system is likely going to impact it. And that's just a use case if race is one of the factors, right, that is being considered.
So, I read somewhere that AI, specifically ML, is a result, or it resembles human beings. That is, for example, the data maybe that has some inherent biases is because humans have inherent biases. What do you think about that? And do you believe that there can be AI models extremely free from biases that are mostly unconscious because of, they're coming from the humans who, build such models or create the data?
Yeah, no, that's really a great question. And I always say that the good thing is that AI systems are like mirrors
Mm-hmm.
reflecting our historical decisions, historical biases. So, right? So, if you look at the mirror, you'll see yourself in the mirror, how well dressed you are, and if otherwise as well, then you can make a decision if you want to look nice or not, right? So, the same thing with AI systems. And another thing, so I agree with you that AI systems more or less already behave like human. We have human who are biased. We also have humans, right, who make decisions that later on we realize that they are not actually the right decisions. And for example, even if you talk about hallucinations, humans also hallucinate, right? So we probably have AI systems right now that more or less behave like humans, right? But I also like to differentiate between bias and discrimination. So
Mm.
when it comes to systemic output. So output from AI systems that are likely going to have adverse impact, right, on different groups, different demographics, different protected groups, right? I'll tell you that because of the nature of one, the data, two, because of the nature of the assumptions that go into the underlying models, right? So it's nearly impossible for you to have a perfect model or a perfect system. So
Mm.
by design, because of the underlying assumptions behind the AI system, you would always have a biased system. You will
By
always have,
assumption, sorry, so what do you mean
yeah,
by
so like the Oh, thank you. What I mean by assumption, I'll give you a concrete example, right? So if you're building an AI system, for example, to make a decisions about mortgage underwriting, right?
assumption?
So you're going to have lots of data points that represent an individual, right? It could be information about my borrowing activities, how I make payment about my loan obligations or data about my historical debt payments and all that, right? So data coming from different uh, um, um, areas or sectors, right? As a developer, I need to make a decision about what data is relevant to that mortgage application that I'm developing. Now, in making that decision, it could be something based on attributes or data points that correlate with the risk that I'm trying to predict, or
Mm.
attributes or data points that are causal to the risk that I'm trying to predict. And there are different techniques that you use to make that decision about what data point is relevant or related to the risk that you're trying to predict. And each of those processes or decision points relies on some assumptions
Mm.
about how the techniques should work. So, like we always talk about math, right? We think of math as objective truth, but I
Mm.
always like to say that math is also a simplified representation of some subjective thinking, right? That people have. So that's what I really mean about assumptions. So because of decisions as to how I'm going to decide what attributes or variables are predictive or relevant to the scenarios, assumptions about how I'm going to decide or select the model. There's a lot of models out there that you
Mm.
can use to actually solve the particular problem, right? So because of all that, even if you decide that this is the data, this is the model that you're using, the model itself, the way they learn, the way they are trained, right? The way they search for optimal solutions, they are based on assumptions. So the heuristic search approach,
Mm.
techniques or approaches are also based on assumptions. For example, at the National Fair Housing Alliance, we have a model, we have a solution that we're rolling out in a couple of weeks. And what that solution does is that if you have a text and you want to decide if the text was written by human or generated by human, that solution that we're rolling out will help users to make that decision.
Well,
Now, when,
oh,
in putting the solution together, we tested several models, right?
mm,
And when we're talking about models, they're just simplification of reality. So after we tested several models, we made a decision based on the accuracy of the model, the performance of the model, and then selected the one that we thought is the best performing model. But even the best performing model relies on some assumptions in terms of like making that prediction of trying to differentiate between a text that is written by human or generated by AI. So that's really what I mean by there will always be bias. You will not always have a perfect model. But I also said that discrimination is really what happens when you now deploy that model. And for example, that model, when it is deployed, is producing adverse impact or adverse
mm,
effect based on classes that are protected under the law, right? So, which means that lots of due diligence need to happen before you actually deploy the model. You need to make sure that you have a legitimate model in place. And if, for example, it is established that the model that you have in place or the system that you have in production is causing adverse impact based on protected classes, then you better have a legitimate reason for actually doing that.
even- So, is it safe to say assumptions are biases from your explanation?
Well, not all assumptions are biases, because again, when we talk about model, and I'm not even thinking about like mathematical model right now. So just think of model literally, it's a simplification of reality. So we
Mm,
need to make some assumptions if you want to simplify reality. Just like we're having this conversation, we're having this recording. I'm looking at my screen right now. It's two-dimensional, right?
mm,
But we know that we're not living in a two-dimensional world. But we need to make some simplification so that we can have this conversation. So that we make the assumptions does not mean that it's inherently biased when it comes to model, because these are complex. We're searching for complex patterns in the data, right?
mm,
Even if you think about a human, say we want to replace AI system by humans. So instead of using AI to make some decisions, we want humans to make the decision. If I give you 1,000 data points about my mortgage application, as a human, you probably will not have all the time to go through all the 1,000 data points. At some point, humans will also have to make some assumptions, right?
mm.
To make some decisions because you don't have luxury of time. The same thing applies to AI systems. We need to make reasonable assumptions so that we can at least leverage the patterns that we have. So to your question, not all assumptions are bad, right? Some of them are really good. We just need to improve on how we search, how we make the assumptions that will help us to solve the problem that we have at times.
Well, I get it. Thank you so much for enlightening that issue. So, okay, we've already started talking about ethical issues such as bias and discrimination. With the way AI has been rapidly evolving and permeating across industries and even personal lives, uh, what are the other ethical challenges that you believe that companies or even people have to, you know, solve or like conquer for AI to really be seen as should I say safe or entirely 100% beneficial? I,
Well, yeah, that's a good question, and yeah, I have to think further about the implications about. One thing I know is that you know, with every opportunity comes a risk, right? So,
Mhm,
in terms of like AI being 100% beneficial, I would say that, yeah, I always like to say nothing is impossible, but um, there will always be risks that we
mm,
need to mitigate. For example, just last week, the MIT released what they call AI risk repository, right? Where one of the objectives is to really help policymakers to understand the risks that
Mm,
come with AI systems, AI deployment, right? And then now, once you identify the risk, how do you mitigate it, right? Same thing, NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, about I think 2 years ago issued a risk management framework, right?
mm,
So in the risk management framework, for those who adopt that, right, it will help them to really understand how risk can manifest in AI systems. So that means that for every potential opportunity that you can think about when it comes to AI system, there is always a risk that you need to mitigate, right? So, but that said, there are different solutions or processes that need to be in place to effectively manage the risk that come with AI system. And now to your question or your comment about ethical issues or ethical concerns that companies need to think about, I'll tell you that because AI as a field is still emerging, right? And it's probably going to take a while for us to actually get a hold or a handle
mm,
on what all the possible ethical concerns are. That said, I would say that there are some existing body of work that
mm,
cover comprehensively those ethical concerns, like the White House AI Bill of Rights already lays out five principles that are ethical and that AI systems need to reflect. The White House executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy use and development of AI also lays out principles, ethical values that AI systems need to reflect. Some of them, for example, is around explainability. You need to be able to explain how your AI system is making the decision. If you can't explain that, right, then you don't want to deploy the AI system. Also, transparency. You want to be transparent about what data you're using, the quality of the data. And these are some of
mm,
the concerns that companies that are seeking to deploy AI systems or leverage the benefit or advantages that come with AI systems, they need to be aware of. But that said, they are still emerging, right? And I mean, AI system is still emerging, is still evolving. There will probably be some other ethical considerations that needs to be in place depending on the use cases.
mhm. So I was trying to also follow up with transparency, explainability. What are the other ones?
Oh
The
yeah, so like non-discrimination, fairness,
okay.
safety,
Mm,
transparency, explainability, and also human in the loop governance. You want to make sure
mm,
that there is always human in the loop. Though I always say that, well, most of the problems or issues that we face right now were actually created by human, but it's still always good to have a human in the loop so that there's an oversight. Yeah.
mm, awesome. So ethical issues versus innovation, which should take precedence?
Wow, that's a tough question. It's a tough question. In fact, some of the policy statements that are coming out of that are related to AI that I've been going through, it's more or less like there is two things, right? There is a thing about innovation. There's also a thing about principles and ethicals and all that, right? The way I think about it, and this is also coming from some of the work we do here at the National Fair Housing Alliance, I strongly believe that the two can go hand in hand.
Mm,
There's a couple of views right now that are looking into, creating sandbox. Sandbox is really like an environment where you bring all the different stakeholders together so that before you develop your product, you deploy your product or your system, you do a lot of testing, rigorous testing in that sandbox environment to make sure that all concerns are addressed, right? So that way, when you think of a sandbox environment, you can bring in innovators. You also bring in ethicists, sociologists, and, for example, AI governance and researchers and practitioners.
Mm,
They are all working on the system together to make sure that as you are innovating, because you're not deploying yet, you're just innovating, trying to find newer ways of, solving the same or old problems, right? The ethicists are in place to also call your attention to what the concerns are. So I think that is a framework that would allow the two to go together, to actually work together. So it shouldn't be about innovation. It is not about innovation
mm,
versus ethical values. We shouldn't be thinking about suspending our values because we want to innovate. And also, we shouldn't think of, stopping the train on innovation because we want to make sure that we have, because of ethical values. So creating a sandbox environment or a regulatory environment where those two can come together and then do a lot of rigorous testing to make sure that before you deploy the system, the ethical concerns are addressed. I think that's what I would propose, not one against the other.
against the other. But do you think they'll what's the word now? Do you think they would be able to work together? Because the way both teams think are entirely different, and some are like, no, this is how it should be. Like, no. So, do you think they will actually work together, or would it be like Anthony Joshua and then Mike Tyson in the
My
ring?
time. I I think, based on some of the conversations we're having, some of the efforts that we are leading, I do think that yes, they can work together. And I'll give you a concrete example. And of course, the concrete example is the work we're doing right now at the National Fair Housing Alliance. So the National Fair Housing Alliance is a civil rights organization, right? And when you think of somebody like me who is coming from a technical background, then the question is, okay, what are you doing within a civil rights organization, right?
Mhm.
But out of our thought leadership, we thought that, well, we need to create an environment where technologists and civil rights advocates can have conversations about the issues that, for example, if they are not checked, can amplify housing discrimination. That if they are not controlled, can amplify housing discrimination, right? And not just about having conversations alone, but we also want to take feedback from those conversations and implement them in AI system. And that's really what, for example, my team does. Like we work closely with our public policy team, legal team, communications team, member services to make sure that as we are testing, researching, and even promoting these AI systems, we are reflecting the feedback that we're getting. So that's really the best example that I could share. Now, because of the White House executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy use and uh, development and use of AI, the executive order 14 110, a lot of federal agencies right now have they are publishing how they're using AI. So they have AI use cases. There's AI inventory where if you go there, you'll see different agencies how they're using AI. So which means that even the regulators are beginning to have in-house data scientists, in-house AI expertise, which would help them to understand all these different issues, how it applies to their areas, and so that they can have effective oversight, right? So with those two examples, what the agencies are doing and what the National Fair Housing Alliance is doing, I would say that yes, it is really possible for the two sides to come together and advance solutions or AI systems that keep our society safe.
Okay, then definitely it's possible. You give an example. So, and this means that for us as a society to have a robust AI, maybe framework or guidance, we need all hands on deck, right? It's not just
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. All hands need to be on deck from the consumers that are going to be impacted
Mhm.
to those who have years of expertise or domain expertise in this area who really understand, even before you deploy your models or build your models, they really understand different issues, right? Everybody needs to come together and be part of the solution. Because otherwise, we're only going to have systems that would continue to create structural issues that we're trying to address.
Address. So, following on that point, now, do you think it's important for people to be well aware about AI in terms of learning AI education, and to what extent?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of work going on in terms like AI literacy.
Hmm.
So because AI is going to impact, and I mean positively here, impact every facet of life. So every sector is going to be touched or impacted by AI, from housing to education to employment to health to transportation. Just think of it. Everything is going to be impacted, even including education, right? So, and there are different activities at the federal level, state level to make sure that citizens are AI literate. Just like when it was like basic math, right? So math, I believe is compulsory K to 12, right? So the same thing is going to happen here when it comes to like AI literacy, how to use it, how to make sure that at least those who are using AI systems are aware of some of the ethical concerns that come with the use of AI, and also informing them with how to check the balances, right? Because we need to have checks and balances in place, how to control, create awareness when it appears that AI system is going wrong. So some basic AI literacy is going to become mandatory. It's going to be required uh, in the coming future.
Okay, so it's important to start positioning oneself to avoid. So, there's a very interesting question. When I just said to start positioning oneself, do you believe that AI would take, did I say take, well, would replace a lot of people? Of course, how, wait, how do I put this question? But in terms, so there's some fears in terms of AI being able to do some tasks faster and sometimes even more accurately. So, do you think that should be one of the need to learn more about AI? Because if AI is going to take people's jobs, then it's better to know this guy that wants to take my job.
Yeah, so I mean that's a great question, like workplace use of AI, right? So and almost everyone now has what's good like AI applications on their smartphone. I don't know if there is still anyone that is not using a smartphone, but I want to believe
Oh.
that there is at least one AI app on
Mhm.
everybody's smartphone. There have been some studies published recently. For example, Microsoft and LinkedIn a couple of months ago published a report about how people are bringing their own AI to work, right? So, and if I remember the study correctly, about 75% of employees are now using AI at work, right?
Mhm.
So, and you could imagine a situation where some years back, people refuse to learn how to use a typewriting machine, right? And then you remember like what happened to them. But when computer came, so imagine those who are like the typists and say, well, I'm not going to learn how to use computer, right? So think of what happened to them. So the
Mhm.
same thing is probably going to happen here when you see that those who are using some AI tools they have better productivity, right? And then with higher productivity, right, also additional benefits that come, for example, compensation or salary raise or a promotion and all that, right? So I think there are a lot of reasons why people want to start thinking of how to pick up on these tools, how to learn them. Because again, I could tell you, even from my own experience, it does like my own productivity, it has increased. But as you use these tools, also it's important that you do your own due diligence. So it's not really a question of uh, full replacement,
Mm,
because you would, like I shared with you earlier on, right? You cannot have perfect AI system. There will still always be rooms for improvement. And to improve AI systems, you also need feedback from the users. But now, if you're a user who is not literate enough to even dictate what the issues are, then what would happen is that you're just using the tool blindly, and
mm,
the productivity that you're even trying to increase, right, would lead to deterioration in, for example, the quality of work, right? So there is still room for people to actually be literate when using this tool. So I don't see a situation where there is like full replacement of all these different opportunities when it comes like activities that people do at work. But it's very important that, people try to get skilled up when it comes to using all these different tools.
so almost more like human AI synergy.
Exactly. So
Well,
we have to learn to
yes.
coexist and cohabit with all these different tools.
Okay, so the final question. So what do you imagine as the future with AI? I mean, would there be like humanoid robot just walking on the street? I'm like, oh hi, Dr. Michael. Like,
Wow.
what?
Well, so it's difficult to really imagine what the future will look like when it comes to AI. I wish I could, but even if I have the power to actually make that prediction, right, I'll still be skeptical.
Um,
Because November 2022 or so, right, nobody predicted that ChatGPT will happen on all of us. But what I think it's likely going to happen when it comes to AI is there is going to be the rise of personalization algorithms. Like
mm,
before the advent of generative AI applications, right? I've had the privilege of being on teams where we're looking into how to build products that that can connect with users at personal level, right? So, and by that, so when you think about some of these AI systems, they rely on aggregate information where you have this massive data, but then they aggregate the patterns or information in the data for you to be able to make a prediction for an individual. So aggregate information.
mm,
Now, when you think about people having AI applications or AI apps on their system, on their smartphones, for example, right, or other portable devices, and they begin to interact with all these different AI systems or on-edge devices, then what I envisage will likely happen is that we're going to see models or AI systems that are going to be customized to individual needs, right? So,
mm,
which is really what I mean by personalization algorithm. So, some of these models, because they're going to have lots of information about individuals, they don't need to rely on other people's information before they can actually make predictions. And that's what I think would happen in the near future. We've been hearing about AI agents, right? And
mm,
agents where you're trying to like create a smart solutions that can trigger activities or actions and all that. So imagine some of the things you do on your phone yourself. Say you want to set up an alarm, or you're thinking of even buying a property, and think of like the different stages that you have to go through. But
Mm,
then there are AI agents that know you so well that they can make some of those, I don't say decisions because I'm not advocating for, you know, an automated decision or complete automated decision, but at least they can make recommendations on your behalf to make sure that you spend the rest of your day doing, things that are even more fun, right? And
mm.
then you can come back and so look at all these different recommendations based on personalized information, and then you can make your own decision. So that's what I think would happen. Like the rise of personalization algorithms or models that learn at individual
Well,
levels, and also rise of agents. That would be my prediction, and that's where I think the trend will be going. For example, let me give you a concrete example. When it comes to credit scoring application in housing, right? So almost everyone that has at least one trade lines has a credit report, right? And so imagine a situation where you take your credit report, which you order from one of the credit reporting agencies, you feed it into one of these applications, and you are interacting with it based on your own personal information, right? And then it's making some recommendations. That's the level of personalization that I think is going to happen in the era we're heading into.
definitely looking forward to that because it's going to save so much time, and so one can just focus on doing fun things than the.
One thing.
So you
Yeah,
mentioned.
but yeah, as you focus on doing fun things, I also say it's very, very important that we pay attention to some of the risks that come with
Mm,
personalization. And these are some of the work we are also leading here just to make sure that at least we are prepared for the future. We have the right frameworks in place, we have the right processes in place to cover all those different issues that may arise.
so the risk of personalization is privacy one of it.
Absolutely. Privacy is one of the, because the more you share, uh, the more you are interacting with personalization algorithm, what is
Mhm,
really happening is that there are some information that you need to share for the algorithm to actually, for example, learn your habits so well so that
mhm.
it can make prediction about what you want to do in the next 30 minutes or an hour and all that, right? So there is a high risk of privacy breach, right? So you're spot on that privacy is one of the concerns when it comes to personalization algorithm. And we've actually written a paper on this with Tech Equity Collaborative, a nonprofit that is based in California,
Mm.
looking into the intersection of privacy, civil rights, and also personalization algorithm.
And security is also another one.
Security. Well, I
Safety.
always think about privacy and security as two sides of a coin, right?
Mhm.
But security, anytime we talk about privacy, security also goes along, right? So privacy, security, they go hand in hand.
Okay, get like 2 or 3 points on how to like how to prepare for this risk. Have you and your organization figured it out?
Oh,
Or is it
I
still a
wish we
work in
figured it.
progress?
I wish we figured it out. Yeah, so yeah, yes, spot on is still work in progress. We have active research on privacy enhancing technologies. There are different technologies out there, for example, differential privacy, zero knowledge proof that we're exploring and testing to see which of them are going to be effective enough to address some of the concerns that we're seeing when it comes to the use of AI in housing and how to promote them, how to advocate for them. So we're still doing series of testing when it comes to privacy enhancing technology.
Okay, one more thing before I let you go. Sorry. So you mentioned that you're working on a model that helps differentiate what is human written and generate. When is it coming out?
So we actually have the model right now.
Okay.
We're going to be launching it, if not later this week, sometime next week.
Okay.
And we have a name for it, which so
Okay. You don't want
again,
to review right now.
sorry, can you say that again?
Do you want to reveal the name or not? Not now, right?
No,
Okay.
no, no, not yet. Yeah, but
Okay.
there
Okay.
is more information that will be coming from our communications department
Okay.
about it too. But we've tested it. It works so well that all you need to do is you go to the interface, you paste the text, and when you paste it, it's going to give you some probability, like an estimate of it being generated by human, written by human, or generated by
AI
an AI
model.
system. And this product that I mentioned was actually, it came out of the work we do on NIST challenge. So the National Institute of Standards and Technology um, put forward a Gen AI challenge. And so I think there are two parts to that challenge. One of the parts is about um, developing a system that can be used to differentiate between human written and versus AI generated text. And we participated and we tested based on the data that we got, and we saw that, wow, this is really a good solution that we want to share with the public. And that's why we made the decision to roll it out to the public. And again, once we roll it out, it's not perfect. Just like I said, you're not going to have a perfect AI system,
Yeah. So,
but we hope that people will test it out, they will use it, and then they can provide feedback in terms of like the accuracy and the performance of the system. We also went a step further that if the system can also predict the likely source or the likely platform of the text. So it will tell you with probability the likelihood of it being generated. For example, if it is a AI generated text, it will tell you the likelihood of it being generated by Gemini,
wow.
ChatGPT, or Cloud, and
Okay.
all that, or
Wow.
by human. So that's the system, and it should be rolled out later this week or early next.
I'm definitely looking for. Well, I'm looking forward to it. So there's mixed feelings. Teachers will love this, but students would not like this.
Yes, that's right. So though, in terms of like, there are similar solutions out there that look into this, but we're hoping that at least the primary use case here will be, again, checking the authenticity, right, of the
Mhm.
text. That you're able to tell if a text was written by human or an AI system does not necessarily mean that it's a bad thing, right? Because
True.
uh, as these AI systems work, you need human to prompt them, right?
Mhm.
So the system we have right now will not even be able to tell you what's prompt. We'll not be able to reverse engineer back to the prompt, right? But there
Mhm.
could be instances where even at work, you have your own draft, right? Let's say email, or you're thinking that, well, can I polish this? Can I perfect it? And then you share the draft with an AI system, and then it even provides a like improvement on the initial draft that you have. But at least the system will still be able to help you, like with checking the authenticity and all that. But I just want to say that it doesn't really mean that, well, it's entirely bad, even
Mhm.
like in education setting, right? That a teacher is able to detect the source does not necessarily mean that we want to discourage people from using the platform. There's still more to be done to, you know, address some of these questions or issues that you raised.
So in that case of having a draft and having the AI polish it, what would be the outcome when it's put into the model? Would it be? 50% human, 50% AI in that case? What will happen?
That's a good question, and I would say that we encourage users to just test that out.
Test
These are
it.
some of
Okay.
the feedback that we
Mm,
want to get, like because so there will be an opportunity for users to provide feedback and let us know where or areas that they think we should improve. For example, as a user, I would encourage you, you have your own text which is written by you. You test it on the platform,
okay.
see what the prediction is, and also the modified version, and then see what the prediction is, right? And then you can share that feedback with us.
Okay. I can't wait to test it. I'll be looking forward
Yeah.
to the to when it comes out. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Dr. Michael Akinwumi. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's really been an enlightening time. I mean, I've learned so much about AI with these 2 episodes. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, do you have
Thank
any
you. Thank.
final thoughts or comments?
Yeah. No. My final comment is to appreciate you. Thanks for providing a platform for us to have this conversation. Because without a platform like this, most people would have to make a decision about what to do with AI. They will
Mm,
probably want to say, okay, should they remain a Luddite and have this fear or concern about AI, or should they be futuristic about AI? And I think platforms like these provide an opportunity for people to think that, well, it is humans like us that are having these conversations about AI. So, and then they can actually start thinking of also being part of the conversation because, like, you started with questions about engagement, right?
right.
So
Yeah.
if people are not testing this product out, if people are not using some of these AI systems, right,
Mm,
the community engagement is going to be weak. It's not even going to reflect their experiences. The experience that you're going to have comes from using the tools, right? Like, was it, I think last week I was using one of these platforms and I typed something like search for, a research area that I'm working on. And I said, search for 5 review articles about this particular research topic. And, it gave me a list of 5 research articles. And you know what? All the 5 articles were product of hallucination because they were not real. So I clicked on the link. The article that it pointed to, they were not real and all that. And now, because I'm part of the community, so I'm able to
mm,
actually share that experience so
mm,
that those who are developing the system, they can include my experience in as part of their development process. So, you know, platforms like yours is what we're using to actually, uh, you know, um, advance our literacy work, our AI literacy work, so that more people can be part of the conversation. So
mm.
thanks again for having me on your show. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, and thank you much more for coming on this platform. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
And
you. All right.
to and that is the end of this podcast episode. I'm sure you learned a lot, and let me know your comments and your reviews. Thank you so much, everyone. Till next time. Bye.